Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Straker, Program Manager for Communitech's Future of Retail program, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's event. We have a jam-packed agenda in store, but first, it is my absolute pleasure to thank our lead partner, Sonova, associate lead partners, Lazarida School of Business and Economics, Tulip, and Wawanisa on behalf of the Independent Insurance Broker Channel, and contributors, Cowan Group, Edgeworth Box, and Manulife. Thank you for supporting us in such a meaningful way. For the next segment, you may want to expand the presentation so you can see it in full screen. The purpose of this morning's event, Call for Solutions, Solve a Problem for National Retailers, is to engage and equip innovative companies to propose solutions to a challenge faced by national retailers. We'll begin by providing a summary of our work on the future of retail so far, building context for our panel discussion, the objective of which is to help you identify opportunities and alignments. We'll then have an audience Q&A, followed by a brief presentation on our solution submissions process and deadline. Next up will be a virtual networking segment, which will see our speakers and representatives from Edgeworth Box, our procurement platform, positioned on branded virtual tables and ready to discuss the challenge at hand in greater detail. The event will then wrap up. Future of Retail is a collaborative innovation process aimed at building communities around big challenges or opportunities in the retail sector. The process moves through 5 stages. Explore, where we identify our core of founding partners. Define, where through a series of facilitated workshops, we define the problem we're aiming to solve. Solution, where we solicit solutions to our problem. Test, in which we evaluate the solutions received in the previous stage to determine if and how they address the challenge. And finally, wrap up, in which we conclude testing and begin planning for the next stages. Let's now take a close look at the define stage. Through August, we established our challenge landscape by holding facilitated sessions with each of our partners in which we asked them about their goals, challenges, and opportunities, as well as what they would like to focus on. We then held a plenary workshop in which we connected the dots across the feedback from our initial round of sessions and identified a challenge statement to succinctly articulate the problem we want to solve. This brings us to today, in which we'll discuss the challenges we're looking to solve in sufficient detail for you, our audience, to prepare and submit an informed solution submission. Our plenary session was attended by innovation leaders from our lead and associate lead partners, including Sonova, a leading provider of innovative hearing care solutions. They reach consumers through multiple channels, including a large network of independent hearing care professionals. Wawanisa Insurance, on behalf of the Independent Insurance Broker Channel, one of the largest property and casualty insurers in Canada, they have a proud tradition of corporate citizenship and a large distribution network of independent insurance brokers. Tulip, a mobile application provider focusing on retail, their solutions enable retail associates to deliver concierge clienteling experience to their customers. They work with luxury retailers, including Coach, Michael Kors, and Tory Burch. And Lazarida School of Business and Economics, which is one of the most prestigious and selective schools in Canada, with campuses in Kitchener-Waterloo, Brantford, and Toronto. Going into the plenary session, a clear narrative emerged. The current retail experience is based on trusted personal relationships. These relationships are great, but they have limitations. Data, analytics, and digital engagement bring new opportunities, and the key of the digital experience is the personal touch. All this brought us to our challenge statement. How might we seamlessly combine personal and digital touchpoints to improve and extend our relationship with both current and new consumers? To help us explore this in greater detail, we are very lucky to have with us an expert panel of innovation leaders. They are David Arbuthnot, Director of the Wawanisa Innovation Outpost here at Communitech, serving as Wawanisa's connection to the insurance ecosystem in the Toronto KW Tech Corridor. The Outpost provides both tech scouting and lab development capabilities as part of the larger Wawanisa Innovation Group. Prior to Wawanisa, David spent 5 years in product management as a leading telematics provider, working on some of the largest UBI and road usage charging implementations in North America and Europe. Duncan R. Moore, Vice President of Marketing and Omnichannel for Sonova's retail channel in the USA. Duncan has more than 12 years experience in the hearing aid industry, starting his career with a competitor heading up the market for Australia. He moved to Sonova around 8 years ago as Director of Marketing for Australia, and then relocated to Singapore as Director of Marketing Asia Pacific, leading teams in 9 countries across the region. He is passionate about customer experience excellence and thinking about ways to approach things differently for a world-class omnichannel offering. And Wynne Elmott, Global Director of Retail Excellence at Tulip. As a seasoned retailer with more than 20 years experience in the field, Wynne has a vast understanding of all levels of retail, from salesperson to executive. At Tulip, Wynne provides industry best practice consulting to some of the world's top brands, such as Chanel, Ferragamo, Coach, and Michael Kors. She is an active speaker and moderator for peer-to-peer retail groups who disrupt, innovate, and evolve the retail industry. Duncan, David, and Wynne, thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, immediately following our panel discussion will be an audience Q&A. So audience members, if questions come to mind, please submit them to our handy Q&A section. You can also upvote questions you would like to see most answered. I'm going to unshare my screen here and then we can get on with the panel discussion. Do we have our panelists? Excellent. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. So let's get started. Maybe Duncan, perhaps you can get us underway and just explain in detail and with some examples what challenges you face in the absence of a more seamless flow between personal and digital touchpoints.
Yeah, and I think when we look at the hearing aid market, you know, a lot of our consumers will do a lot of online research. They'll do an online hearing test, and they'll become equipped with a lot of hearing aid related information that we're not aware of. And so being able to seamlessly, combine the research they've done, the information they've got, their level of hearing loss from an online hearing test with their in-store experience would mean a better patient experience, greater conversion. And I think just having that link between their activity online and what they're wanting to achieve from a hearing aid in store, I think is the biggest challenge for us. I think also the one view of a customer is where we're challenging as well. Like I think when we look at with COVID, we've done a lot of telehealth appointments, but we're finding it hard to have one view of the customer from an omni-channel point of view, from a remarketing and retargeting approach.
Great, wonderful, thank you, David. And obviously, it's not apples to apples, and there are a number of points of separation, but structurally, I think there are some similarities between Waranisa and Sonova. What here sounds familiar, and what are the points of separation and other factors that you've observed at Waranisa?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to remember is that as our customers buy insurance through our independent broker channel, they look to those brokers to be a trusted advisor to make sure that they're buying the right product to meet their needs and best ensure the safety of themselves and the family and the property. And as we've seen, more and more parts of that journey are starting to happen digitally, and that was happening certainly prior to COVID-19, but now with what we've experienced, it's we think accelerated that journey. But our brokers still provide many services in person and develop that trusted relationship. So we want to look for ideas that can help them continue to be that trusted advisor as the experience becomes much more omni-channel than it did in the past, where parts of it happen in person still, of course, part of it may happen online. Again, parts of it are happening with the customer doing their own research prior to talk to the broker. So we want to ideally learn from some of the best retail practices in the broader market and look for opportunities that could fit or be reapplied within our distribution channel.
Excellent, and I think that's a really good point, and a great segue to Wynne. So Wynne, in all your experience in the retail sector, are these challenges, are some of the things you're hearing now from Duncan and David unique to Sonova and Waranisa, or have you observed them more broadly?
Absolutely. These are issues that everyone is facing. So, I see within the industry, we have certain clients where, one of them was running two different sets of customer data between who was the online customer and the in-store customer, and then how do you bridge those pieces together? We have also had clients who actually didn't have a proper e-com platform. So when COVID hit and all the stores were closed, they had no way to actually help those customers to make purchases. So I think, the overarching kind of theme here is that a lot of companies are still operating in silos. So there's the retail chain and then there's the online chain. And so really, in order to move forward, it's how do you tear down those walls and make it one so that it is one seamless experience.
Mm-hmm. And so, what are the main consequences you're seeing of retail companies that aren't managing the online to offline transition? Are there certain key symptoms that they exhibit, and ways that they fall behind those that are tearing down those walls?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really you get frustration on both sides. So as a retail store associate, there's frustration because even, to Duncan's point, if someone's shopping online and then they come into the store, when the associate doesn't know what's already happened and has no access to that information, they have to start the process all over again, going through all those different questions. And then it leads to frustration for the client who's like, I've already done all of this stuff and now I have to do it again. So, really it makes for an uncomfortable journey for both parties.
Right. And Duncan, this must be ringing true with you in terms of what you're seeing at Sonova. Are there other business consequences that you're seeing in both in terms of Sonova and your distribution network?
Yeah, so I think having the ability to see someone's online behavior. I mean, when you look at a hearing aid consumer, essentially there's a very heavy denial period. Often 7 years before they'll realize they've got a hearing loss, 7 years later they'll take action. But during that time, they're actively looking online and taking online hearing tests, like I said, and really kind of registering for information. And I think we have an opportunity to shorten that 7 years and get people hearing help much sooner if we're able to kind of link their online behavior with an in-store visit. And I think that's a real opportunity to kind of grow the market as well, just by shrinking that 7 year period.
And that's such a good point, because yes, there's a business imperative for Sonova, but there's also a real opportunity here and a potential opportunity missed right now to really serve your target customer base over a longer period of time, and to provide them with really valuable support. It's not easy going for 7 years of increasing hearing difficulties. Exactly.
Yeah, and look, hearing loss is such a major social issue, and it's a bigger impact than people think. And if we're able to, get in front of people with some help sooner, I mean, it's going to benefit so many people.
Right. I remember during our initial sessions, we talked about mental health challenges. We talked about people avoiding social contact because they didn't want to reveal to friends that they had hearing difficulties. There's real stigma that for no reason people have. Meanwhile, all four of us here are wearing glasses with computer.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think at some point the stigma may decrease, and part of this discussion is this opportunity. But I think there's still a very, very large stigma that hearing aids mean certain death, getting old, and all those things. So I think also we have an opportunity to kind of reduce that stigma, reduce the 7 years, but also reduce that stigma by smart use of online versus offline.
Absolutely, and I really think just speaking, serving your customers, David. I remember during one of our sessions, you asked the question: when someone buys insurance, are they really buying insurance, or are there value-added services that you can provide that speak more fully to the outcomes they're looking for? So could a seamless flow of personal and digital touchpoints equip insurance brokers to sell a broader range of value-added services and also provide more service and more support to your customers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we often, you often hear that, insurance, the purchase experiences, people are buying it because they have to buy it. If you have a car, you have to have auto insurance. In some ways, it's a regretted purchase. But I think, part of that comes from the purchase experience and understanding the nature of the product. So I think, we believe there are opportunities for our distribution network to better contextualize what they're actually getting as they buy insurance, and understand that it's more about the peace of mind and being having that assurance in place that should something go wrong, the company is there to help you, put the pieces back together quickly and efficiently. And so part of that purchase experience is making sure that the consumers are understanding exactly what they're getting and what can be at times a complicated product, and making sure that they're getting all the information they need in a way that they need it to make the best choices for themselves and their family. So just making sure that actual purchase experience is optimal, and also bridging the timeline of doing that, where often you may only talk to your think about buying insurance once a year or once or twice a year, and so how do our brokers ensure that they're building the best possible relationships with their customers when it's relatively an infrequent purchase, and is there things they could be doing throughout the year to help better understand the changing needs of their customers? So can they understand that if the customers purchase a swimming pool and put it in their backyard, that they need to be talking to their insurance broker about the changing needs for their home insurance because of that. So those types of life events that can lead to changing needs. How do we leverage those events and make sure that it's a great customer experience?
Right, absolutely. And so I think just going back. So there are a few points there. Just going back to what Wynne said, the continuity from the conversation that takes place online to in-store, the ability to better serve your customers, and also the ability to expand the kind of service offerings, and really the ability to continue and amplify the human interpersonal relationships that you have, and using technology to do so. Are there any other opportunities, Duncan or David, that you can think of that you have an eye on in terms of once this problem is resolved?
Look, I mean, I think that the one thing that springs to mind is obviously from an omnichannel point of view is a more robust telehealth offering. I think when we look at a true omnichannel play, incorporating e-com, etc., because we're selling a device that you can't just buy and you receive it and you're done. You need to have a hearing test. You need to see a hearing care professional and have the product adjusted and set to your hearing loss. And I think as part of that, having a really solid, telehealth and omni play it's where we're wanting to head. And COVID's kind of sped up the process. I mean, traditionally the hearing aid industry has been very much offline, partly because of the fact that our demographic is of a senior population, but also partly because I think the industry is concerned that moving towards an online play will devalue the hearing care professional, which is not the case. I mean, the hearing care professional is the most important part, even when we start to move towards telehealth. So I think we've got a lot of work to do to really kind of ramp up our online abilities, as well as kind of making the telehealth process as seamless as the in-store process.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, just part of the challenge with the insurance purchase experience is the need to exchange a lot of information. If you've purchased insurance, you might feel like you're being asked a lot of questions, potentially about things that you don't necessarily know about, and so the opportunities to better leverage data sources and put the consumers in control of sharing that information, giving their consent to share that information, but ultimately, speeding up the process of understanding, their needs about their home or their health or their family, so that they can work through the best choices, but maybe not have to answer 57 questions. If we can source some of that information with their consent through other methods, and really let the value of the broker shine through in terms of having that very human discussion about trying to optimize the coverage for that individual's needs.
Right. So it's about also humanizing the process, I suppose. So a lot of data points need to be collected by an insurance broker. Is there a way that we can leverage technology to do that, so we can really focus more on the relationship side of things?
Yes, exactly. Taking those friction points out and letting the trust and the relationship piece shine through.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Wynne, going back to, I want to explore cross-selling a bit more. Obviously, the conversation here is a lot about services, but I'm also interested to hear about how this transposes to products. And just a bit of context, I read in a Mood Media report on post-COVID shopper sentiment that consumer behavior is changing. with many consumers becoming mission shoppers who identify the product they want to buy digitally and then go in store with this kind of tunnel vision on buying the product and then getting out as quickly as possible. So obviously there's this whole thing that less time in store means less money spent, but doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Or are there other opportunities for a retailer to upsell and cross-sell and better serve their customers?
There's definitely opportunity there. And you're right, though, shopper behavior is changing. You don't just go to the mall to browse now. That's not something that happens. So, really in terms of being able to maximize things for a sales associate from their perspective, actually, let me bring it back a little bit. So, the shopping experience, a decade, 2 decades ago, was that you had to go to the store because the associate was the expert. They're the ones that gave you all that information that you needed. And now you're right, that is not the case. And COVID has actually accelerated that again. So as a shopper, I go online, I do my research, I know exactly all the specs and details of everything that it is that I'm looking for. And when I go to the store, chances are I might actually know more than the associate about that one specific product. So being able to, put tools and technology in the hands of associates so that they have quick access to that kind of thing. So whether it's seeing the things that I've looked at online or even just having quick access to product knowledge or availability of products or extra things that maybe aren't shown online to a customer, helps to kind of level the playing field so that as an associate, I have the tools that I need to be successful to, really provide special service. But then on the other hand, as a customer, we don't want them to have different shopping experiences. So from an online perspective, if they're looking to shop online, a lot of times we're seeing them wanting to have personal service as well. So reading about it, but then having a question. So we want to try and make the experience the same. So whether I'm in the store, making sure the associate has the same info that online would have, but then if I'm online, the ability to have a personal touch if I want to have that as well. So that as a customer, I can kind of have it all regardless of where I'm shopping.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, and you're absolutely right. There's no longer this asymmetry of information between the retail associate and the consumer. And often the consumer has already done a huge amount of research. The storefronts are now digital, and you spoke during one of our sessions, and we touched on it a bit that most consumers start their buying journey digitally and then move in store once they've already made all the decisions. Hence this mission shopping phenomena that we're observing. And so the retail companies that are really surviving and thriving are those that are tearing down those walls between the digital and the physical. Are there some really knockout best practices that you've seen, or companies that are really leading the way? And if so, who are they, and what have they been doing?
I think the companies that are doing the best right now are the ones that are kind of getting rid of some of those old ways. Like retail isn't just about filling the store with as much inventory as humanly possible and waiting for people to come and buy it. So the ones that are doing the best now are the ones that are really focusing on experiences. So maybe all of the inventory isn't in the store. Maybe there's a sample of everything, but really it's about allowing those customers to, again, do their research online, being able to come into the store for those extra pieces. So that personal touch, even the psychological aspect of retail therapy is a real thing. So, going and having that one-on-one experience with someone, having a trusted advisor, and really having a trusted advisor is something that plays across all fields. Like that would be applicable, to you, David, and both to you, Duncan, as well too, where having not a concierge service so much, like that works really well in luxury. We see that a lot with like Chanel's and Ferragamos, but we're also seeing it more in all different levels of retail or services now, where it's about having someone I can trust. So maybe, my relationship isn't necessarily so much to the brand, but I like the brand, but I really like my person at that store or the call center or the clinic or wherever it happens to be. But I have that one person that knows me, knows all the things that I like. And so we're seeing that spread across. It started in luxury, high-end luxury, but it's moving now, and everyone's adopting that type of model.
Got it. Let's talk a bit more about just what the landscape is right now. So, Duncan, is there anything that Sonova is doing already or working on at the moment that could play into this, that could complement this?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we have a bit of an advantage that what Win was saying just now about the relationship is our market's kind of always been like that. So people will always associate with the hearing care professional and not so much the brand. So we need to do everything we can to kind of leverage that relationship. Look, I think because of COVID, like I said, our telehealth offering has accelerated, and I think we've got a lot of work to do on kind of getting that to best practice, but we're sort of already entering that market. I think, again, the online sales part, look, it's some of our areas are selling some things online. We haven't fully gone into e-com yet, and again, the reasons for that is just managing the hearing care professionals relationship. I will say though that our vertical has a lot of work to do around single view of customer and management of data, and it's very much look, I think because you know, the industry is a little bit antiquated in some ways. We really have a long way to go on, you know, what are we going to do with this customer data? We've got some here, we've got some there. How do we combine it so we give not only a seamless experience, we can also retarget effectively? And I think remarketing is an area that we could do a lot of work in. But look, I think the telehealth part is probably our biggest opportunity, and we're making some steps there.
Mm-hmm. David, how about with Mornisa? What are you guys working on, or what do you guys have in mind in terms of your internal developments?
Sure. I mean, as an insurance carrier, obviously we're working to try and make our products more understandable. So make sure people understand what they get when they purchase a policy with us, for example. But from a distribution point of view, we really are trying to help enable our channel, our broker channel, to be able to service their customers best. And we believe that if they're servicing their customers best, we'll win our fair share of business by having the right products ultimately that meet the consumer's needs. And so we've spent a lot of effort trying to help enable our broker channel through sort of a digital transformation. But what we're really hoping for here is trying to see are there best practices or ideas or technologies that are out in the broader retail world that we haven't thought of that might be useful to our channel. So we sort of live and breathe insurance distribution day in, day out, and sort of all the nuance and specificity of that particular product. And what I think the future of retail program is offering us is an attempt to understand what's happening in a broader context and other pieces that could be applicable. Looked at sort of the Nordstrom experience, as a retailer and building their retail business around having that trusted relationship with their shoppers. And so kind of what we're interested in is are there things out there that we wouldn't necessarily think of as insurance people, quote unquote, that may be useful to us. We want our eyes open. So that's this sort of call for open innovation is for us is an opportunity to see what else is out there and maybe think differently, think innovatively, right, about how we could reapply things to our channel.
Right, and that's exactly it. And during our conversations, we did speak about a lot of fancy technologies, and that whole idea came up about people who have potential solutions that they wouldn't necessarily think could apply to the insurance space or the hearing care space. And we talked about VR, AR, AI, IoT. A question to all three of you: is there anything in mind that you think would be really cool to explore? Anything that you think is going to really start to catch on? And maybe when you can speak to this, really start to catch on in terms of the in-store experience over the next few years. That people operating in that space may not necessarily think this is an opportunity, but it could become an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, the new hot topic is video. So as a retailer, or even for David and Duncan in your fields as well too, video plays a huge part, especially with customers afraid to leave the house in a lot of cases. So what we're seeing with a lot of our clients is that they are doing virtual appointments. So the associate is in the store and they're speaking with someone at home, but the associate in store through a video call can walk the client through the store, show them the new collection, put pieces together from them, and they have that real-time experience as if the customer was actually there. We also see it being used from like a relationship standpoint. So when COVID, the first wave, was at its peak, and no one was really doing any kind of outreach to sell things, it was really about relationships. So we saw retailers whose associates were connecting with clients on video to do yoga classes, cocktail parties, different, like just anything with their customer just to build that relationship. So that's kind of that's the hot ticket right now. But I think as we progress, we will see a lot more with AR, so that augmented reality, where you can go in and kind of be in the store, even though you're not in the store, and kind of walk through and, you know, virtually touch things, look at things in more detail, get pricing and product information, but doing it, you know, virtually as if you were in the store. You know, same with virtual reality. We see things like I know Warby Parker does that, where you can virtually try on glasses before you buy them online. So you don't necessarily have to go to a store. You kind of get that whole experience online. So that using technology to enhance the shopping experience and really kind of giving customers something that they didn't even know they wanted. Like, you know, the thought of virtually trying on glasses and not going into a store to try them on was like unheard of years ago, but now it's totally normal. And you can do that with jewelry, you can do that with clothing, haircuts, like, you know, the possibilities for it are endless. So I think, you know, the new things definitely will go into AR, VR, using AI. But, you know, I think the next big hit will be technology companies coming up with something that will make the experience crazy and new, and something that people don't even know they want yet.
Right. Duncan, David, any thoughts on any of that? Is there anything that you think could be applied to what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to Wynn's point, you know, the remote appointments, doing them via video, that's something, as I said, we're already doing. I think for our industry, one of the biggest things would be the experience of both hearing loss and rehabilitated hearing loss. And I say that meaning that the family and friend in the hearing aid purchase situation are the most important people. They're the ones that are saying, look, you need to go ahead with this hearing device. Your hearing loss is affecting us. And so having the ability for the person without the hearing loss to experience what it sounds like, I think is going to be the biggest thing for us. So essentially you could hear how it sounds for your partner who's struggling. And that's a really emotional thing. And I think that's going to really, really drive the industry forward. And look, vice versa, I think if somebody has a hearing loss, being able to demonstrate to them what particular situations, like a restaurant, a noisy restaurant, a car, you know, a shopping mall, what that would sound like if they were wearing hearing aids. I mean, that's just going to, you know, take the industry to the next level. And I think that's our biggest opportunity for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, we've seen some, you know, unexpected use cases. So there's one, for example, in the US where, you know, a consumer can take basically 4 pictures of their house from outside and upload them, and they're able to, it then just stitches those photos together and essentially generates a 3D model of the home, which is useful in figuring out coverage and stuff. But then the consumer gets access to that model as part of their experience. So if they want to, you know, decide, there's tools, right? So if they want to think about painting their house a different color, you know, they can do that and kind of get a virtual view of what their house would look like if they, you know, painted it purple or whatever before they make that decision. And so that's, you know, that's something that's kind of completely outside, you know, what you would think of as the, you know, the insurance purchase experience, and probably something that, you know, the consumers didn't wake up one morning and think, oh, I'd really like a 3D model of my house so I can see what it looked like if I paint it. But on the other hand, it's something that's being produced almost as a product of the journey. You know, as sort of a value add, and so it's those kind of unexpected things in the journey that you know, we're looking to try and discover and see what, you know, what might be possible. It's, you know, it's very much a how might we situation for us. So.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, you know, we've all seen examples of those people who didn't have a 3D model of their house to look before they leap, and then just went and painted a wild color that looked hideous. So, you know, the future is bright, but maybe better looking than we've seen so far. Just a quick word to our audience. We've got, I think, a few minutes left to run on the panel discussion. If anyone does have any questions that they'd like to put to the panel, please do type them into the Q&A section on your screen, and so we'll be able to prepare to address those ahead of time. Just going back to David and Duncan, so a big challenge with all this, because we talk about these amazing technologies and we talk about what the future could look like, but a big challenge with all of this is, of course, adoption. You both have large distribution networks and end users as well. So what are the kind of challenges that you maybe anticipate encountering here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that the biggest one for us really is that our demographic, I mean, because we're selling hearing aids, they're generally, you know, of a senior population. And when we start to talk about, you know, use of digital and use of technology, we really do face some challenges in kind of getting them on board with that. And many of our demographic don't even own a smartphone, you know, so how are we going to go down this path of innovation and technology if our consumers aren't ready to get there yet? So we've put a lot of work recently in, you know, working with them on almost tutorials on how to kind of do a telehealth appointment, spending a lot of time explaining, involving family members and friends to kind of help them with that. But I think the biggest challenge is use of technology, but we're still facing the adoption of the hearing aids in general because of that stigma that I spoke about. So I think we've got two things to do: reduce the stigma and also increase their knowledge of how to use the technology.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, I mean, I think, you know, the technology barriers becoming, you know, different in sense of, you know, the ubiquity generally of many of the technologies, and potentially, you know, through COVID-19, seeing even, you know, demographics that maybe were less used to using those technologies, you know, making the shift to using them. So the key really, I think, is keeping the simplicity of the technology there. But also for us is just making sure that we understand, you know, what maybe some of the assumptions we're making, right? You might think that, you know, digital natives or millennials might want to, you know, have a 100% digital experience for everything, including insurance. And yeah, we know that on making that type of purchase, having access to a trusted advisor is incredibly important for them. You see millennials being high users of bank branches, for example, which people probably, you know, don't suspect, but, you know, they want some assurance and some feedback, and making sure that they're, you know, making the right choices, and then they may choose to transact a bunch of things digitally once they're sure that they know what, you know, what they're doing and that they're making the right choice. So it's really about trying to dig deeper and understand, you know, what are the motivations, and what are the friction points, and how can you bridge those for everyone.
Right. So Tulip's bread and butter is quickly developing and then rolling out new technological wonders to luxury retailers to help them engage and delight their customers. So obviously there's retail associates dealing with change on potentially quite a high cadence. So, you know, how easy was it to get retail associates to adopt these new technologies? And have you seen instances of customers pushing back and saying no to video calls, or feeling comfortable sharing their information with retail associates?
Yeah, so the question is almost two parts. So to start with the adoption piece on there, really adoption from a retail point of view really boils down to change management, and how does the organization handle sharing the fact that there is new technology and new information coming. So there's always a fear what's going to happen when this new technology comes. Like, associates are always a little bit hesitant. So I think it's really important from a retail standpoint that there is a lot of discussion ahead of time about finding out from the associates, what are your pain points? Like, does something that takes 6 steps now, could technology turn that into 4 steps or 3 steps? So finding pain points, being able to solve for those pain points, making sure that associates understand that this technology is, you know, here to assist, not replace, and how it will make their lives better. That usually opens them up to it. But I think David, you had mentioned as well too, like, it's got to be easy. So not only easy for a customer, but easy for the associate to use as well. I think, you know, ageism kind of pops up in this a lot, where a lot of what I've had clients say, you know, oh, well, a lot of our associates are, you know, 45 plus, so they're not going to understand the technology. But I mean, almost everybody has a cell phone. I know, you know, my parents, my husband's parents, that's how like all the grandkids communicate with their grandparents now. They're all texting and video calling. So, you know, that people over 45 know how to use technology, so it's not quite as scary as they might think. But making sure that it doesn't have too many steps and too many buttons, and obviously not something clunky like we would have seen in the 80s or 90s. It should be something that has a button takes care of it and it moves you through. So it needs to have a nice interface that makes it easy to use for all sides. And then I'm sorry,
Right.
What was the second part of that question? Can you just say that again?
So I say consumer pushback. Have there been any losses or struggles that luxury retailers have had in engaging their customers in a new way?
I think the biggest concern that's always on a retailer's mind is compliance. So making sure that they're not breaking any laws in terms of collecting data. What are they doing with that data? So I know in Europe we have GDPR compliance, so it's really important that if you are collecting data, that the customer knows what are you doing with that data, that they have access to see that data whenever they want. So I think that's definitely something important to keep in mind, that when you're deciding on what kind of technology to put in place, that maybe your legal team is involved, so that they're making sure that all those boxes are getting checked. But otherwise, customers are not really hesitant to move on with technology. Like if it makes the experience easier for them, they're usually all for it. And if not, they have that relationship with their advisor that if they don't want to do it remote, they can just come and see you.
Yeah, that's absolutely, and a great segue actually to one of our audience questions from Francois Leroux. So each of you has mentioned data collection or management as part of improving the retail experience. But what are some of the challenges that you've had in collecting or managing or working with data?
Yes, I think the challenge we face is we have a number of clinics across the country, and I think the data entry point, we have some quality challenges. So really training the store staff on how they should enter data into the system. Things like, to Wynn's point, the assumption that a senior will not have an email address, and so therefore they don't ask for it. And really training the front end staff to have them understand why we need the data in the way that we do and what we're going to do with that data as well. I will say from an industry point of view as well, we as a hearing aid sort of industry, we've grown by acquisition in many ways. And by that, I mean, we sort of acquire a chain of locations and we acquire their data. And with that comes a lot of kind of quality challenges. And so really for us, it's about quality, not so much usage. And I think that's really just a matter of ensuring the frontline staff are, entering things correctly, and we can then use that for marketing purposes.
In our perspective, there's just as a to an omni-channel experience, making sure that it's very easy for the brokers to have access to anything. Lots of things were partially done online and partially done through a call to a call center, and then ultimately in person. Whatever order those things proceed, that they're getting a consistent view of the customer, that they're collecting the right information, and so customers aren't having to re-answer the same questions over and over, because then they've started in one area and stopped and then want to progress in a new channel. Making sure that that's it's very seamless. That's definitely a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some of the other things that we're seeing, so at Tulip, with our clients that are doing clienteling specifically and gathering information, having a mix. So not just like the static data, like what's your name, what's your email address, what's your phone number, but giving the associates in store the ability to add in specific stuff about clients that isn't standard information. So, maybe adding in relevant important dates, putting in notes about the customer, and the notes could be anything. Like it could be that, their daughter's getting married, that they're going on a trip, that there's some kind of big impacting thing that's coming up that would be important for the associate to be able to reference later, or even to be able to talk about preferences, just things that the customer likes that could have the potential to change over time as well too. Kind of like even David, in an insurance thing, you were talking about pools. So, what does their house have? Does it have a pool? Does it have 5 stories? Does it have, just information that during a conversation, the associate or the provider could hear that information and go, I think this is important, and put it into a profile that then anyone within the organization has access to right away, so that you're not going through that process of having to ask customers the same questions over and over again, because the data is right there and everybody can see it.
And I think that touches on a couple of pieces. First of all, the opportunity to be thoughtful, and so much of this is about emotional intelligence. Duncan spoke about this in terms of understanding what people with hearing difficulties go through, and one of which being social isolation, which everyone's now experiencing to a greater or less degree. Everyone feels a level of apprehension before they go into a retail store. I think also that data collection point that you just mentioned, Wynne, could that be one way of augmenting a retailer's ability to broaden the kind of services or identify cross-sell or upsell opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some retailers that use it to highlight different activities and things. So we have a few athletic apparel retailers who use it to identify who likes to attend yoga classes, who likes to be part of the running club, who likes to be part of just the community chat. And you can flag those things and then be able to, filter a customer list to just do outreach to the people that want to go to a yoga class. And then you can do specific outreach just to those individuals.
Right. Question for David here from Renko Dolman. So already a lot of data is available of properties like property value, demographics, etc. Is that already being used to automate the calculation of the insurance premium?
Yeah, I mean, so definitely there are data sources available that we're able to leverage to bring in to save having to ask the questions for underwriting. But we think there could be opportunities to extend that and be able to get information that can meet other needs as well. So yeah, there's definitely some in place today, but really we're trying to make sure that we do that in a way that's as transparent as possible as well to the customer. So we kind of find this balance between wanting to ask a lot of questions, needing to ask a lot of questions versus pulling in information and allowing them to just verify that the information that we have sourced is correct. So there's always the opportunity to review it to make sure it's correct. Yeah, it's kind of an area that is of interest.
Right. Okay. Duncan, Carol 1 wants to know, what is the current focus of your marketing strategy and how do you expect it to evolve moving forward with growing pre-shopping discovery?
Yeah, so our current focus now is really around kind of education around hearing loss. We don't do a lot of product-related information. Generally, if you're a consumer that's in that kind of denial phase and not sure about what to do with your hearing loss, the last thing you want to see is a hearing device in front of you. So it's really around education about the impacts of hearing loss, things to look out for, any challenges that hearing loss could face, and that taking that first step is very simple. So it's really kind of a lot of content and education. And I think that pre-shopping discovery, I mean, we really try and do focus on that area now. So we look at, what are the barriers and how can we overcome them with this part of content, and really being in front of people with things related to what they'd be looking for prior to that. I mean, I think that to my point earlier, I think the challenge with that is that I don't think we're doing a good enough job of kind of bridging that gap between that person doing the pre-shopping and kind of being in front of them with the right stuff. I think we've got a lot of work to do with kind of, working to be in front of them with something that's going to make them act quicker or provide them with a more seamless experience to take that first step. At the moment, it's very much, here's a piece of content, I'm going to fill out an online form, someone's going to call me to make an appointment, and I'll go to the clinic. I think, shortening that period is going to make it a much better experience for the patient. But I honestly don't see a lot of the content-driven stuff changing a lot. It's more about the management of the life cycle of the patient.
Right. Question from Mike Dearden. What, if any, challenge do you see in recording the interactions between associates and client, and then allow that data to be used to better serve the client over time?
I think I can jump in to start this one. I know that, as I was mentioning things like GDPR compliance and CCPA, I think that it's important that your customer has to know that you're gathering this information on them. So once they they, I guess, opt in. So once they have said, yeah, I want to be contacted by an individual, I want to have this relationship, then really they're saying it's okay for you to have that information, for you to take those notes, you know, as long as I have access as a customer to see them, should I decide that I want to see that information. So, you know, in terms of recording interactions, at Tulip, we don't see anyone actually like doing a video, like recording a video chat, like recording a session like we're in right now. But what they would record is things like email interactions, text messages, things like that. So there'd be those types of threads or the notes that are being taken. And over time, if as long as the client has said, yes, I'm okay with this, then you're fine to have that information.
Duncan, David, any thoughts on that in the context of what of your organisation?
Yeah, look, I think I echo what Wynne said, but I think from my point of view, I think it's the central storage of those interactions. I mean, I think when we were talking about a hearing care professional, a call center, distribution, all those different areas that would interact with this patient, I think the challenge is the storage of that. There's so many different systems, and I think that's one of our biggest challenges is how do we get all of that into one spot? Otherwise, it's really unusable in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Does that sound familiar to you, David, as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are very specific challenges. So if you're recording, say, a call center call, needing to make sure you have the ability to then pause it if you're collecting like credit card information, for example, to facilitate the payment. So it does drive a certain level of sophistication in terms of what you're recording and what you aren't recording to not have a record of, for example, particularly as it starts to rush into payments and whatnot. But yeah, there's definitely some needs for managing that, and from a compliance perspective, certainly in the insurance industry, it's very specific details that would have to be gone through. But in general, it's not just as easy as turning on and recording everything. So yeah,
Got it. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So maybe time for one last question. This is really for everyone to think about. So where do you think the white space is? How could a brilliant, innovative company looking to complement and build on your existing capabilities mitigate the challenges you're experiencing while also helping you to leverage the opportunities that you're seeing?
Yeah, look, I'll have a go. Oh, you can. Okay, I'll go. Yeah. Okay. So I think, as I've said a number of times, I think for us, it's really about providing an omni-channel solution for a patient. I think the hearing industry has assumed up until now that the right course of action is a patient goes to a clinic, sees a hearing care professional, gets a hearing aid. There has been nothing in terms of the patient driving the journey. It's very much us kind of driving the journey. And so very simply, just a world-class, seamless omni-channel play where we can see everything the customer does, every interaction, one view of the customer. They can go virtual, they can come face-to-face. They choose the way they interact with us, and we absolutely need to know every single interaction they're having with anyone within the company. And it sounds very simple, but for kind of a clinical setting and something where it's a medical device, it poses a number of different challenges. And that's the kind of golden egg for us, is to get to the point where we're acting like a world-class retailer in a medical space. It's quite a kind of challenge when you're trying to combine those two things.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent answer. I think just echo, fundamentally, the relationship is about trust, and trusting, that your advisor and that you're purchasing the best product for you. And so, really, that's for 100 years it's been done in person, and we've had that close relationship to the person who's selling the insurance. And so, how does that, how do we take that trust and make it part of the digital experience without losing the very human part of making this purchase based on trust, because it's not something you physically take home and drive around or put in your backyard. It's a product that is ultimately a service about trust and believing that you've bought the right product. So how do we take that experience and better digitally enable parts of it or all of it?
Great. Any thoughts from your side, Gwen?
I think, realistically, when it comes to different kinds of technology, there's a ton of technology out there already today. So, ideally, we're looking for that next big thing, the thing that's going to make life easier for both associates and for customers, things that are going to enhance that personalized experience or the personal touch. And really, if that can be brought to the table, that wins. That's that loyal customer that will stay with you forever. If you can make a good experience, make it personal, and have a technology to make it as easy and seamless as possible.
Excellent, thank you. Well, Wynne, David, Duncan, thank you so much. Let's now just take a look if I can actually share my presentation again without going on mute. Here we go. Okay. So the deadline to submit your solutions is November 9th. How do you submit your solution? Our partner Edgeworth Box has a handy new solution that's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Edgeworth Box is a digitized RFP platform that includes social networking tools for buyer-supplier collaboration and is our platform for challenge submission solutions. Instructions will be included in the follow-up communication as well as on our website. But all you need to do is go to edgeworthbox.com/apply, fill in the form and click Create New Account, and then check your email and confirm your account. To find the RFP, simply search Public Open RFPs for Future of Retail, click the Respond button, and then enter a summary of your response and attach supporting documents. Edgeworth Box has some pretty amazing capabilities. One of these is the social media functionality that allows you to advertise yourself and your company via profile pages. These pages will include a section about your business, as well as the ability to upload marketing documents. All text in the profile page will be searchable so that buyers can find you easily. Think of it like think of the messaging platform as being like Slack for procurement. Suppliers can collaborate on the bids that they can and communicate directly with buyers, either on a public RFP channel or privately. Members of the same team can also communicate with each other on a company-wide private channel. But that's not all. The Edgeworth Box platform also gives you the ability to invite users from your organization to collaborate. You can assign 3 different levels of access. Admin can do everything, including user administration. Editor can respond to RFPs and update responses. And read-only, which does exactly what it says on the tin. That brings us to the end of the content component of this morning's event. We'll shortly be kicking off our virtual networking segment, in which you'll have the opportunity to speak to our panelists and the chats from Edgeworth Box directly. Before we do so, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our leading partner, Sonova, associate lead partners, Lazaridis School of Business and Economics, Tulip, and Wawanisa on behalf of the Independent Insurance Broker Channel, and contributors, Cowan Group, Edgeworth Box, and Manulife. Thank you also to our fabulous panel speakers, Wynne, David, and Duncan, and to all our attendees for joining us this morning. You'll soon receive a follow-up communication, including a recording of today's event and a link to our RFP platform to submit your solution and an event survey. You'll also have the opportunity to sign up for our soon-to-be-launched newsletter, your essential guide to the future of retail. If you have questions, I'm available and at your service. So please reach out to me at any time or chat with me in the virtual networking segment.